Sloths are amazing animals. They are the only animal named after one of the 7 deadly sins. They live a life in slow motion, hanging from trees nearly all day long and all night long, chewing on leaves and sleeping, except to come down to the ground to defecate once a week or to change trees. Many people find their droll faces and tiny bodies cute and comical. Today, there are 2 genera and 7 surviving species of sloth. The 2-fingered sloth, Callipus didactylus and Callipus hoffmanni, and the 3-fingered sloth, Bradypus, which has 5 species. As early as 1551, Conrad Gesner first mentioned the living sloth, although it was based on a skin, so they thought it was a monkey with claws. Linnaeus mentioned sloths in his 1758 classification, but his descriptions were no better. But sloths are not always small tree dwellers. Of hundreds of the known sloth species, all but 7 are now extinct. Most sloths are huge animals, lived on the ground. They have an amazing fossil record and an interesting history. In 1788, fossils were found on the banks of the Luján River in Argentina and sent back to Spain, where they're put together in a mount in the Royal Cabinet of Madrid by the museum employee Juan Bautista Bru. This was the first extinct animal ever displayed as a mounted skeleton. Sketches of the specimen reached the famous French naturalist Georges Cuvier, the founder of comparative anatomy and vertebrate paleontology. He could tell even from sketches that it was related to tree sloths, and in 1796 formally described it and named it Megatherium americanum. Unfortunately, it was mounted in the wrong pose, with a swayed back and huge claws flat on the ground. We now know its front claws were held curved inward and it knuckle-walked. Megatherium was the size of an elephant, and it, along with the gigantic Erematherium of North America, were well known to the early naturalists. Most people think of Thomas Jefferson as our 3rd president and the main author of the Declaration of Independence, but he was also an avid naturalist, collecting specimens and describing them before learned societies. In 1796, he received some huge fossilized bones from a cave in what is now West Virginia. The most striking feature was their claws, and Jefferson assumed the bones came from a giant lion that still roamed the American West. He gave it the name Megalonyx, Great Claw. One of the tasks he assigned to Lewis and Clark when they explored the Louisiana Purchase was to go find this animal, because Jefferson believed in divine providence, and it was inconceivable that this creature was extinct. Of course, it was no lion, but another kind of ground sloth, which is now named Megalonyx jeffersoni in his honor. When the young Charles Darwin was on the Beagle voyage to South America in 1832 and 1833, he went ashore and collected numerous fossils. Among these were remains of several different ground sloths. When he returned in 1836, he gave the fossil mammals to Sir Richard Owen, the famous British anatomist and paleontologist, to interpret and name. Owen had already written a complete monograph on another skeleton of Megatherium that had been obtained for his museum, so he recognized the ground sloths. He named and described 3 new kinds of ground sloths: Mylodon darwini, Glossotherium, and Scelidotherium leptocephalum. Another key figure in early paleontology was Danish naturalist Peter Wilhelm Lund, who came to live in Brazil in the 1820s. He and some associates started a program of collecting fossil bones from many different local caves, where they discovered the sloth Nototherium, Catonix, and others. Lund first began publishing these finds in 1832, just as Darwin was sailing off the coast of Argentina. Lund was also the first to discover and describe the saber-toothed cat Smilodon, long before it was discovered in North America. Today, we recognize sloths as members of the suborder Folivera, within the order Xenarthra, the armadillos, anteaters, and the sloths. There are at least 7 separate families of sloths, all but 2 of them extinct. One family is the Megalonychidae, based on Jefferson's Megalonyx, but it includes about 24 other genera. They date back to about 40 million years ago in South America and Antarctica, and include sloths like Haplops and beds about 10 million years old in South America. Haplops had a slender body by sloth standards and a long tail as well. Megalonychids were among the first ground sloths to travel from South America to North America, swimming across the narrow straits of Central America around 9 million years ago, long before the Panama Land Bridge opened. Bradypus, the 3-fingered sloth, is most closely related to the Megalonychids. The second sloth family is the Nothotheres, with 8 genera, including Lund's Nothotherium from South America, plus Nothotheriopsis shastensis, the Shasta ground sloth, from the La Brea tar pits, and many Ice Age caves in the southwest. Some of these caves are full of piles of fossilized dung from Nothotheriopsis. The most peculiar of the Nothotheres is Thalassocnus, part of a lineage of sloths that became aquatic and are found along with fossil whales and sharks in the marine Pisco Formation of Peru from beds about 12 million years old. There is actually a sequence of fossils of Thalassocnus show how this lineage went from less aquatic to fully swimming sloths, presumably feeding on seaweed in the shallow tidal region. Closely related to the Nothotheres is the family Megatheriidae, including Megatherium, the first fossil vertebrate ever to be made and amount of display and given a formal taxonomic name, and 9 other genera. The biggest sloth besides Megatherium itself was the huge Equiremetherium, which crossed the Panama land bridge around 3.5 million years ago and is found in Florida, South Carolina, Texas, and through the tropical and subtropical parts of the Gulf Coast. Like Megatherium, Eremetherium was elephant-sized, reaching 20 feet in length, 13 feet in height, and weighing almost 7 tons. The fourth major family of ground sloths is the Mylodontidae, with about 17 genera. The best known of these is Paramylodon harlani, the largest and most common sloth at Rancho La Brea tar pits, and known from many other Ice Age localities across North America. The Mylodontids also include Glossopterium robustum, one of the best-known Ice Age sloths of South America, and of course Mylodon darwini, found by Darwin himself, and known from numerous good specimens from South American caves, some of which include skin and even hair. Molecular evidence suggests that the three-fingered sloth, Calepus, is related to Mylodontids. That means that the 2 genera of tree sloths are not closely related as one supposed, but both independently evolved from 2 different lineages of ground sloths and evolved convergent features as they got smaller and adapted to life hanging upside down in trees. Finally, the last family of ground sloths are the Megalocnidae, with 6 genera that evolved in isolation along the islands of the Caribbean starting around 30 million years ago. Megalocnus rodens is distinctive because of its chisel-like incisors in the skull that resemble those of a rodent, while most sloths have no incisors or canines and only have cheek teeth. Megalocnidae still survive long after ground sloths went extinct in the end of the Pleistocene about 10,000 years ago. Specimens of Megalocnus from Cuba date to only 4,700 years ago, so they're even around when the pyramids were built. So that is the history of sloths. Over 60 genera evolved and diversified in South and eventually North America. Over 22 genera and 33 species of Ice Age sloth vanished 10,000 years ago, except for a few survivors in the Caribbean. Today, only 2 genera are alive on the planet. In these 2 genera, 2 of the 6 species of living sloth are on the endangered list. The once mighty kingdom of the sloths is nearing its end.